Right now, if you just got a raise or landed a better job or finally crossed that income number you've been chasing for years, you're probably thinking about all the things you can finally buy. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of what people upgrade the moment they make more money is exactly the stuff that keeps them from ever making real money. And the list of things that actually deserve an upgrade is almost never what you think. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you this part. Everyone loves talking about the fun upgrades. The car, the apartment, the watch, the vacations that suddenly get posted every 6 weeks. But the people who actually turn a raise into long-term wealth are upgrading things you can't see in a photo. Boring things, invisible things. And that gap between what gets upgraded and what should get upgraded is the entire reason some people's net worth explodes after a raise, while other people's net worth barely moves even though their income doubled. Because here's what most people don't realize. Income and wealth are not the same thing. They just look similar from the outside. Let's go back a bit because this pattern isn't new. In the 1950s and 60s, researchers started noticing something strange about lottery winners and pro athletes, people who got sudden, enormous injections of cash. Studies later cited by outlets like the National Endowment for Financial Education found that a huge share of lottery winners, somewhere around 70% by some estimates, ended up broke within a few years of winning. Not broke because the money wasn't real, broke because the moment the money showed up, the spending showed up right behind it, matched dollar for dollar, sometimes faster. Same story with athletes. Sports Illustrated ran a piece years ago citing that an estimated 60% of NBA players were broke within 5 years of retirement, despite career earnings in the tens of millions. Same pattern showed up in that same reporting for NFL players, with figures suggesting a huge share faced serious financial trouble within just a couple years of leaving the league. Different sport, same math, because the issue was never really the size of the paycheck. It was what the paycheck got attached to the second it landed. And it's the same story with regular people who get raises, promotions, or a good bonus year. The money changes, the habits don't. And that's how you get someone earning triple what they used to with a savings account that looks identical to when they were earning a third of that. Warren Buffett has a line that gets repeated constantly, where he basically argues that if you buy things you don't need, you'll eventually be forced to sell things you do need. Most people hear that, nod along, and then go finance a car anyway, because in the moment, a raise feels like proof that you've made it. And proof that you've made it feels like something that needs to be displayed somewhere for other people to see. This is where it gets really interesting, because there's actually a name for this. Economists call it lifestyle inflation. And it works almost exactly like a treadmill. You start walking, the belt speeds up, so you walk faster. The belt speeds up again. You're working harder and harder just to stay in the exact same spot. Except now you're also more tired and you've spent more money to get there. Let me introduce you to someone. Let's call him Jake. Jake is 32, and he just got bumped from $65,000 a year to $100,000. On paper, that's an extra $35,000 a year. That's life-changing money. Jake feels it too. So Jake does what feels natural. He upgrades his car, financing a new one that adds $450 a month to his life. He moves from a decent one-bedroom to a nicer two-bedroom, adding another $600 a month. He starts eating out more because now he can afford it, and honestly, he's earned it. Add it up, and Jake has already committed almost $18,000 of that $35,000 raise before he's even thought about his emergency fund, his retirement account, or his insurance coverage. And here's why that matters. Jake didn't do anything crazy. Jake didn't buy a yacht. Jake just did what almost everyone does. He upgraded the visible stuff first out of instinct, because that's what upgrading money looks like in every ad, every influencer post, every group chat flex. And this is where the story shifts, because the people who actually build wealth from a raise do the opposite order. They upgrade the invisible stuff first, and the visible stuff, if it happens at all, happens last, and it happens in cash. Now meet Priya. Priya got almost the exact same raise as Jake. Same industry, same year, same jump from around $65,000 to $100,000. But Priya did something almost boring in comparison. She kept her apartment, she kept her car, which was already paid off, and she spent her first 2 months just rerouting money before her spending habits had a chance to catch up. She bumped her 401k contribution up by 10%, she called an insurance broker and finally got a real disability policy, and she padded her emergency fund until it actually matched her new expenses instead of her old ones. Only after all of that did she let herself upgrade something visible, and even then she paid cash for it. A year later, Jake and Priya have the exact same income. Jake has a car payment, a bigger rent bill, and almost nothing saved. Priya has a fully funded emergency fund, a maxed out employer match, real insurance, and enough breathing room that if her job disappeared tomorrow, she wouldn't panic. Same raise, same year, completely different trajectory. And the only difference was the order things got upgraded in. So let's talk about what actually deserves the upgrade, because this is the part nobody puts in a headline. First, the emergency fund. Most people have an emergency fund sized for their old life. If your income just jumped, your expenses eventually will too, which means 3 to 6 months of your old expenses is quietly becoming 2 months of coverage or less. Upgrade the fund to match the new number, not the old one. Second, insurance. Not the flashy kind, the boring kind. Term life insurance if anyone depends on your income. Disability insurance, which almost nobody buys, even though you are statistically far more likely to become disabled during your working years than to die during them, according to data from the Council for Disability Awareness. And an umbrella liability policy, which for a couple $100s a year, protects everything else you're building from a single bad lawsuit. Third, retirement contributions. Here's a stat that should annoy you. According to Vanguard's own research on retirement plans, a huge percentage of employees never contribute enough to get their full employer match, which is functionally free money that they are choosing to leave on the table. When your income goes up, that's the moment to raise your contribution percentage before your spending has a chance to claim the difference first. Fourth, your skill set. This one's counterintuitive because it sounds like advice for people trying to get their first raise, not people who already got one. But the people who keep climbing are the ones who treat their own earning capacity as the asset, not just a paycheck. A course, a certification, a coach, whatever moves your ceiling higher next time. Fifth, tax strategy. Once you cross certain income lines, the tax code stops being simple, and a good CPA or tax strategist doesn't just save you money, they often save you multiples of what they cost. But here's what nobody's talking about. Most people don't upgrade this until after they've already overpaid for a few years, because hiring help feels like an expense instead of what it actually is, which is a multiplier. Sixth, your health coverage and preventative care. People downgrade this constantly to save $50 a month, right as their income and their stress both go up. Seventh, estate basics. A will, updated beneficiaries, power of attorney. Not because you're planning to die, but because chaos is expensive, and nobody in your family should have to find that out the hard way. Eighth, your environment. Not your apartment, your people. The 5 people you spend the most time with tend to predict a shocking amount of your financial behavior, and moving into rooms with people who think bigger tends to raise your own ceiling almost by accident. Ninth, your time. At a certain income level, your hour becomes worth more than the task in front of you. And outsourcing the stuff that drains you, cleaning, admin, small repairs, stops being a luxury and starts being math. 10th, and this is the one that ties it all together, your buffer between income and lifestyle. Not your lifestyle itself, the gap, because the gap is what actually makes you free. Here's why this matters right now in this exact economy. Wages have technically been rising. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has shown real wage growth in several recent quarters. But the personal savings rate has stayed stubbornly low, sitting well under the historical average of around 8 to 10% for large stretches of the past few years. Which means the raises are real, but they're evaporating just as fast as they show up, soaked up by rent, by debt, by 100 small upgrades that each feel harmless. And it isn't just individual habits driving that. Credit card balances across the country have climbed to record levels according to Federal Reserve data, and a meaningful share of that debt sits at interest rates north of 20%, which means the visible upgrade doesn't just cost what the price tag says, it costs that number plus a rolling interest bill that quietly outpaces almost any raise you could realistically get next year. Because a raise doesn't just affect your bank account, it affects everything from what you're willing to tolerate at work, to how you sleep at night, to whether an unexpected car repair feels like an inconvenience or a full-blown crisis. And there's a reason traditional financial media doesn't spend much time on this. Because upgrade your disability insurance doesn't get clicks. Buy this instead of that does. The content that performs is the content that shows you a lifestyle, not the content that protects one. So the algorithm quietly trains an entire generation to associate more money with more visible stuff, while the accounts actually building wealth stay boring, unglamorous, and largely invisible. And that's the lie we're being sold, that upgrading means buying something. Sometimes the real upgrade is a phone call to an insurance broker that nobody will ever see. Now you might be thinking, that sounds nice, but I worked hard for this raise. Don't I get to enjoy it? And look, you absolutely do. Nobody's saying live like a monk forever, and nobody's saying that dinner out or a nicer pair of shoes is some moral failure. The order just matters. Fund the boring stuff first, even partially, even just a small percentage at a time. And then whatever's left is yours to enjoy completely guilt-free because the floor underneath you is actually solid, and you're not one bad month away from the whole thing collapsing. But here's what nobody's talking about, and it gets worse the longer you wait. Every year you delay the boring upgrades in favor of the visible ones, the gap compounds against you. That $450 car payment Jake took on isn't just $450 a month. Invested instead at a historical stock market average of around 7% a year, that same amount over 25 years turns into roughly $350,000, which means the real cost of the car was never the sticker price. It was the entire alternate version of Jake's future that got quietly deleted the day he signed the loan. And it gets worse over time, because lifestyle inflation doesn't just quietly spend your money, it also spends your options. The bigger the visible upgrades get, the higher the income required to sustain them becomes, which means people end up trapped in jobs they'd otherwise leave, relationships they'd otherwise end, and decisions they'd otherwise make differently, all because the monthly number got too big to walk away from. Ray Dalio has talked about this exact trap in his own writing on money, essentially arguing that spending less than you earn and putting the difference toward things that generate more income is the entire foundation of financial freedom, and everything else is decoration on top of that foundation. Strip away the jargon, and he's really just saying the boring upgrades are the ones that buy your freedom back. The visible ones just rent it to you at a monthly fee. So the real question here isn't whether you deserve to enjoy the money you're now finally making. Of course you do. The question is whether you're upgrading the parts of your life that make future raises inevitable, or the parts that make you need every single future raise just to stay afloat. Because here's the big picture. A raise doesn't automatically make you richer. It just hands you a bigger lever. And levers are neutral. They don't care which direction you pull them. What you attach that lever to determines whether you pull yourself up or just pull the treadmill faster underneath your own feet. 10 years from now, nobody's gonna remember what car you drove the year you got that promotion or what restaurant you posted from that summer. But you'll absolutely feel the difference between the version of you who quietly built a floor nobody could ever take away and the version who just built a taller, shinier pile of monthly payments. If you're tired of watching financial content that only shows you what to buy and never what to protect, hit subscribe.